What is the greatest fricate? I'll do it myself in history. Jonas Salk needed human subjects to test his polio vaccine. That's normally a long process, and he wanted to make the vaccine available as quick as possible, so he just experimented on himself. He also didn't patent the polio vaccine, I believe, and he tried to help fight the AIDS epidemic even before he died. Otis invented pretty much what we consider the modern elevator. Nobody was convinced it was safe, so he hoisted himself up extremely high and had somebody cut the cable with an axe to prove how confident he was that the elevator was safe regardless of almost worst-case scenarios. Otis UK are based in Reading. When they answer the phone they say, "Hello, Otis Reading." In the UK, telecoms giant Siemens has an HQ in Staines. Here's what they say when they answer the phones. I used to work for the semiconductor group in Siemens. We were fairly elite. We were filled with pride when the chairman referred to us as the cream of Siemens. Siemens has, or had, branch incoming, GA. Considering these other stories, I think they know what they are doing. In 1888, Alman Brown Stroger, an undertaker, noticed he was losing a lot of business to the other undertaker in town. He found out that the other undertaker's wife was a telephone operator, and when she intercepted people asking to be connected to Stroger's funeral home, the operator would route the call to her husband's funeral home instead. 3 years later, Stroger patented the automatic teller exchange, a system which allowed telephone users to make calls without the need for human operators, single-handedly destroying an entire workforce. Imagine being so pissed off you don't just get someone fired, but remove their job from existence entirely. The biggest frick you I have seen till date. Cliff Stoll, the cook whose egg noticed weird traffic on his university servers. No one believed him that there was any risk occurring. Ended up uncovering a major hacking attempt to steal missile designs and basically created internet security. I think it was missile designs. It's been a long time. Jon Snow, not that one, the father of epidemiology. No one believed him that the cholera outbreak in what is now Soho was because of a contaminated water pump. He broke it. They arrested him for vandalism and held him until the outbreak suddenly ended. He was also a pioneer when it came to anesthetics. Queen Victoria permitted him to put her under for the birth of 2 of her children. I visited his memorial in Brompton Cemetery a few years ago. He's right round the corner from Emmeline Pankhurst's grave. Both sites had fresh flowers on them. Ooh, I learned all about that in that awesome animated history channel on YouTube. The one where the heads aren't attached to the necks. It's called the Broad Street Pump, right? It's amazing how much ridicule and obstruction he has to endure while trying to save the lives of thousands. It's a great watch. I highly recommend it. In fact, I think I'll go watch it again. It's like 3 little episodes. He basically invented the field of epidemiology. He trudged around to people's houses and interviewed them, and traced aquifers and everything, all while being a public laughingstock. Probably the time Nando Pirato and Roberto Canessa decided they couldn't wait around any longer and legged it for 10 days across the Andes with no warm clothes, climbing gear, or food except some scraps of their dead friend stuffed into a sock. They finally found someone out in the middle of nowhere, Sergio Catalan, who rode horseback all night and then took a bus to get some help. The mountain climbers had come from the wreckage of a crashed plane that everyone had been looking for over 2 months. They needed help for the other survivors who were injured and starving. They saved 14 of their friends. There's a book written about it by one of the survivors himself, Miracle in the Andes, 72 Days on the Mountain and My Long Trek Home by Nando Pirato. I never watched the movie, but the book still gets me to this day. It is one of the most disturbing depictions of humans' ability to survive even under the deadliest circumstances. A really humbling read, reminding us of our own fragility and how terrible fleeting everything truly is. Nando Pirato sounds like a Star Wars character. It's gotta be, in my opinion, Koivunen. He was a Finnish soldier in the Second World War when the Finns were trying to reclaim land from the Soviets. He got separated from his unit mid-war in the middle of nowhere. He was the one tasked to carry the drugs they held in case of injury or tiredness, one of which was Pervitin, which was literal meth in a tablet form. Instead of just taking 1 or 2, he downed the whole bottle and went on a weeks-long meth-up rampage. He got hit by a landmine, evaded Soviet soldiers, caught a bird and ate it raw, all while on skis. He finally made it back to Finnish lines where on arrival, he weighed only 90 pounds or so and had a heart rate of 200 beats per minute. He ended up living for another 45 years. I freaking love it whenever this story gets mentioned. It's so crazy as to be unbelievable, but it's true. A movie needs to be made about this guy. Crank 3. And my opinion, we didn't even write a script this time. We just gave Jason Statham a bunch of meth and dropped him in Russia. Brian Acton interviewed at Facebook and got turned down. He said frick it and built WhatsApp. Several years later, Facebook bought WhatsApp for $19 Maurice Hillerman invented over 40 vaccines during his career in the pharmaceutical industry. In 1963, his oldest daughter caught the mumps. He cultured a sample from her, developed a vaccine, and injected it into his younger daughter. That vaccine is still in use and has saved millions of lives. In total, it's estimated that his work has saved 118 million lives globally. And, because he used it on his daughter, it is to this day the fastest any effective vaccine has ever been produced. Nikola Tesla was tasked with lighting up the World's Fair, but Thomas Edison wouldn't allow him to use any of his patents, so Tesla had to invent a new light bulb that didn't use any of Edison's patents and could still have thousands made in time for the event. James Clerk Maxwell was idolized by Einstein as being the father of modern physics. Not only did he formulate the classical theory of electromagnetic radiation, but just for its and giggles he calculated exactly what Saturn's rings were made from using pure mathematics. It wasn't until Voyager 1 and 2 passed by and took photos in the early 80s did we get confirmation that Maxwell was right. He then calculated how to take a color photograph in 1855. This was then achieved in 1861 and is recognized as the first ever color photograph. Don't forget his advances in statistical mechanics. People like that just blow me away. Same with Pascal and Euler. Just brains that are different than most everyone else's. The ones that get me are the ancients, to be honest. Greeks, Chinese, Persians, whoever. They figured out a lot of stuff pretty much by just bulleting with each other until it made sense. They weren't always right, of course, but for people that didn't really have much of a grasp of the scientific method, they were right a lot more than I should expect. No doubt, Hero of Alexandria invented the automatic door and vending machine like machine 2,000 years ago. Crazy. In 1947, a guy named Heyerdahl was trying to prove his theory that the Polynesian islands were settled by people from South America, not Asia. Nobody believed him, because it was thought that crossing such a large ocean with the technology they had back then was impossible. So he decides to build a boat using only the tools and materials available at the time these migrations took place. And then he sailed that boat across the Pacific Ocean, nearly dying in the process, but ultimately making it to the Polynesian islands. Juan Pujol Garcia was a Spaniard who created his own counterintelligence operation for the Allies during World War II. Initially, he approached British and American intelligence to offer them his services, but both countries rebuffed him. Undeterred, Garcia created a fictional persona as a pro-fascist Spanish official and got himself recruited by the Nazis, who directed him to travel to Britain to recruit agents. Instead, Garcia created a network of fictitious agents and sub-agents using publicly available information like newspapers and travel brochures. It was at this point that he again contacted Allied intelligence, and he was finally recruited. Garcia continued his work throughout the war, and for the same operation, he received both a knighthood from the British and the Iron Cross from Nazi Germany. The Nazis never realized that he was a double agent. Yes, in the lead-up to Overlord, he confirmed reports that the Allied attack would come from Dover and wouldn't attack Normandy. Then, at the last moment, he confirmed that the Allies in fact would attack Normandy, but it was too late for the Nazis to act on it. So afterwards the Nazis still trusted him, as they would point to him and say he was the only one who predicted the Normandy invasion. It was technical issues, as always, that meant the data got to us late. And supposedly this was one of the most important pieces of deception leading up to Overlord. That's incredible. He was just some guy who knew evil when he saw it and wanted to frick it up. Just some unimportant, unremarkable guy who saw the bad guys getting ahead and threw a wrench in their operation in the vain stupid hope that it would slow them down. And it did at the most important possible moment. He knew it, because the Germans had used the fascist uprising in his country as a test bed for their war machine. He was acutely aware of the evils of fascism and the actors involved. The doctor stationed in Antarctica that removed his own appendix. Goddamn, wasn't that more like, frick me, I have to do it myself. I read that in Gordon Ramsay's voice. It's freaking raw. This appendix operation is like old people having X. Stab self with enormous kitchen knife out of necessity. Frick, I think in that scenario, I would have just died to a burst appendix. Probably would have tried to get myself nice and unconscious first, if I could. I'm not performing vivisection on myself, though. Henry VIII. Couldn't get his way with the Pope, so he made the Church of England so he could do what he wanted. This man legit made his own damn religion, which millions still follow today, just so he could cheat on his wife. No, made his own damn religion, which millions still follow today, just so he could cheat on his wife and his fourth wife. I remember the quote for remembering his wives: divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded, survived. The balls on Catherine's part to look at that pattern and still risk it. Perhaps when no one believed Barry Marshall that H. pylori can cause stomach ulcers, so he thought, screw it, I'll test it on myself, and ended up getting the Nobel Prize. Bless him. I have an ulcer, and because of him we have a better understanding of how to treat it. Used to be one of the main killers of otherwise healthy young men. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please smash the like button and leave a comment which story you liked the most. Subscribe and hit the bell notification for updates on our latest videos. And don't forget to check the links in the description box for more awesome content.